proud to host this Palau side event in this tremendous event in our lifetime, the COP26, as we face the challenges of the future. We're here to talk about how civil societies and the actions that they take can campaign for our work to be carbon neutral by 2050, and how to build resilience from carbon proceeds. Palau, as an island country, is in the front lines of climate change. We are living in the time of crisis. We often face dilemmas on how to balance economic gains with environmental protection. And through deep partnerships with partners like Taiwan, we're able to support some of these actions from government to civil societies, and even inform on public-private partnerships. Friends, it is a pleasure to welcome you. My name is Kevin Mesabalu. I am a co-founder for the Climate Resilient Island Societies NGO based out of Palau. I would just like to briefly introduce the panelists on stage. Directly to my right is Mr. Xavier Matsutaro. He is the National Climate Change Coordinator for the Republic of Palau. Our guest speaker is Minister Stephen Victor. Minister Stephen Victor is the head of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and the Environment. Moving down, we have our panelist, Ms. Yun Ching Tseng, Director for the Research, Development, and Evaluation Department for the Taiwan International Cooperation and Development Fund. We are also honored to have Mr. An Pang Kao, Vice Mayor of Taoyuan City. Welcome, sir. We are also joined by Ms. Brenda Hu, Director General from the Department of Planning, Financial Supervisory Commission. We're also joined by Ms. Chen Yu-ye, Senior Manager of the Foundation of Taiwan Industry Services, or FTIS. Welcome, everyone. I would like to now turn over the podium to Mr. Xavier Matsutaro. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, moderator. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. So our project was originally a carbon offset project, and then it kind of evolved since it was first kind of incepted in terms of what we wanted to do. But to explain a bit of background context, the idea was to offset carbon footprint in our biggest sector, which is tourism. And because we're an island, to get there, you gotta jump on the plane, come all the way to the island, transportation to your hotel. There's many little islands that people like to go and see. We're also known for diving. So people normally jump on boats to get to these destinations. And what you then have is an accumulative effect on this carbon footprint. So the idea is then to quantify those carbon footprints, and then from there, use those proceeds for carbon sequestration projects that I guess have a double benefit of it being something that you can enhance conservation efforts as well. So how are we going to do this? And we don't have the capacity in Palau to do that, so we had to outsource it. We are very happy that we partner up with ICDF from Taiwan to help us develop this carbon calculator. And the idea is what I just stated, to have those kind of dual benefit outcomes that will come from it. However, we ran into a problem, and I'll try and explain it the best I can. Carbon offset can be a viable option, And normally they come in two forms. You have something that is kind of like the Red Plus, where you would do conservation to forest, and you have that as a carbon sequestration project. And the other part is blue carbon, where you can use mangroves, seagrass, the ocean ecosystem as a carbon sequestration mechanism as well. But they're two very distinct. When you're talking about forest, they don't have any problems with the carbon dioxide. In fact, they love it. The ocean is not quite the same. When you have too much carbon dioxide, it increases acidification. Acidification then affects the coral reef system and the underwater not sequestration, what do they call it? Lobster. There's a term for it. I'm sorry, it's slipping my mind at the moment. But basically, things like clams, lobsters, crustaceans, that's what it is, crustaceans. They make their shell weak and brittle. And so the problem is with if you go through the carbon sequestration part of it, the mangroves are fine, but in terms of those credit that you would accrue, just so happen that there's too much acidification and the ecosystem fails, there goes your credits from your carbon sequestration. One, and two, there's something quite fundamental when it comes to this system, because it doesn't really address it at the front end where it's needed. What we really need to do is cut off fossil fuel, methane, things like that. So engine combustions, transitioning to clean energy, renewable energy, and then as much as possible phase out on coal and fossil fuel. That's where our efforts need to be. So to me, in my mind, you're kind of having a Band-Aid fix, but at some point with carbon sequestration, that Band-Aid might end up coming out of the skin, and you have again a susceptibility to an open wound. So we decided to step back and reorganize. And in fact, this was about 2-3 weeks ago when we realized that maybe we need to change a bit of direction here. So as a model, it's basically the same thing. So you're still having to develop this calculator to offset carbon footprint, but rather putting into project that stand the risk of not working out in the end, you put it into adaptation measures, which is actually what we need in practical terms. In Pacific Island developing states, we need to build our resiliency, whereas when you talk about mitigation, that's more symbolic in terms of us participating in it. Really, mitigation needs to come from big emitting countries, as opposed to us, where we really need to focus our efforts on ensuring that our adaptation is robust enough so that we are resilient. So I'll leave it at that. I am really sorry. I have something came up last minute. I have a dual hat. I'm also a negotiator for our delegation, and there's a meeting that just kind of came up last minute. And I understand that there's going to be Q&As afterwards, but at 2 o'clock is that meeting, so unfortunately I won't be here to answer any questions. But if you have any questions though, maybe they can present it to the moderator and I'll be happy to respond afterwards. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Xavier. I do want to clear up if there is a bit of confusion. The Honorable Minister should be opening our talk because of some prior requests, everybody having to leave early. We wanted to offer him to set the stage. Minister, I do apologize for this. Please do take the stand And please let us hear your wonderful remarks.
Thank you, Gavin, and good afternoon, everyone. Throughout this week, we've heard government and private sector make commitment on climate change. So it's good to see that civil society is doing an event that highlights the role that civil society has on addressing climate change. After all, many of the civil society organizations and individuals are the first one to feel the impact of climate change, and they're the first one to act and lead. Often governments come behind just to scale what they do. So thank you, Kevin, and for putting this event together. Palau, together with other Pacific Islands, contribute much less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emission. Yet, we are today living impact of climate change. Our coastal communities are being inundated with sea level rise. Our crops are being destroyed by sea level rise, by more frequent typhoons that we've never experienced before. So not only does our island sink, our food security are also being impacted because of this devastation, and not of our making. We've come to Glasgow that as we talk about this mechanism of carbon trading as a potential approach to addressing climate change, we must ensure that environmental integrity is at the heart of Article 6, especially with accounting and clean development mechanism transition, secured through no carryover of Kyoto Protocol units. We need to ensure that major emitters, both countries and businesses, take responsibility, just as we as small island developing states have taken responsibility to reduce and increase our resilience to impact of climate change. Our outcome in Glasgow must deliver a substantial cancellation rate for the delivery of an overall mitigation in global emissions anchored at 30%, to move beyond offsetting to deliver net global emission reductions. The decisions need to adopt a substantial rate of the share of proceeds of at least 5% toward adaptation, particularly for Pacific Island developing states who are already experiencing impact of climate change. Transitioning to low carbon economies through low carbon development makes a lot of sense to Palau and to the Pacific region, not only for economic reasons, but because of our reality of living the impact of climate change today. Pacific communities, especially rural families, are much more at the mercy of fossil fuel prices in their daily lives, and other LCD will see reduced, low carbon development will see reduced fossil fuels bills for households and individuals, and will free up resources for climate action. Even though, as I've mentioned, Pacific Island contribute the least to greenhouse gas emissions, we are living the impact of climate change. And we will continue to be impacted if global actions to reduce emission to ensure that we stay within 1.5 degrees means survival for many of low-lying Pacific Islands and other small island developing states. To conclude, it is vital to include all players toward low emission through low carbon development. We need to include Taiwan's ICDF as one of these players. We've seen what Taiwan is capable of providing in terms of technology, in terms of expertise that can help not only Pacific Island, but can help address this global human problem. Thank you, and Hofman Sulang.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Victor. We're very fortunate that, as you mentioned, our partnership with ICDF, we have Ms. Yun Ching Tseng, the Director for the Research, Development, and Evaluation Department for the Taiwan ICDF. We'd like to hear Director Tseng about the pledge for sustainability and co-building sustainable pathways of tourism for Palau under the context of a carbon neutral project that Coordinator Matsutaro mentioned, as well as women and youth entrepreneurs and SMMEs relending project. Director Tseng, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin, for your kind introduction. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Yun Qing from Taiwan ICDF, and it's truly my pleasure to be here today. It is wonderful to hear the announcement of Galasio Breakthrough Initiative last week, where we can potentially see $1 trillion of financing in green tech. However, we also heard from Minister Victor and Mel this morning during the One Young World event on the importance of listening to local and not forget those who are already living through it, especially the small island state today. With that, I would like to share with you today how the Taiwan ICDF as an ODA agency is working with SIDS as IDS in their response to climate change by establishing a sustainable pathway to balance both economic and environmental development in Palau. The truth is, the environment development must go hand in hand with economic growth. I will show you how the Taiwan ICDF is working with our partners to lay the foundation for this in Palau. Because the small island states like Palau are nations that are at the front line of climate change. How successful we are in supporting them will be an indicator of how successful the rest of the world are going to be in fighting our own climate change. Let's start by taking a quick look at the impact of the tourism has on economy and environmental development. Tourism is one of the fastest growing sector and major economic contributor for many SIDS. However, the tourism sector is highly affected by climate change, and at the same time, it also generates a larger amount of green gas emissions. From 2016 to 2030, the transport-related CO2 emissions from the tourism are expected to grow 25%, international tourism will be 45%, and emissions from domestic tourism will be 21%. Palau is a good example with one of the best diving and natural travel destinations in the world. However, they are also facing the negative impact of tourism development in recent years. In Palau, with a population of only 20,000, there were an average of 80,000 international tourists a year in 2014. The number grew and more than doubled to 160,000 in 2015, but it did not bring the economic benefits expected. The fact is, while the visitors and travel groups went up, the in-country visitor spending actually dropped. What is worse was the environmental and cultural impact increased because of the high number of low-value visitors. Given the experience, Palau has decided to focus on tourism market, which support value growth over volume growth. I think, how to do this? We are targeting the travelers who are looking to the experience of true local cultures instead of low-budget mass tourism. In response, the Taiwan ICDF has been assisting Palau in this strategy shift since 2020. Our work in Palau is guided by the Taiwan ICDF Sustainable Development Goal Strategy for the 6 partner countries in 3 key areas. For the Goal 13 on climate action, establish a baseline and standardize the measurement and disclosure of CO2 emissions in tourism so that we can identify the best area and the most effective ways to decarbonize tourism operations and engage the sector in carbon removal. With Goal 8 on decent work and economic growth, most women are left behind in financial support, even though they are critical to economic growth in cities. In response, the Taiwan ICDF has increased our financial inclusion, focused on gender equality and resilience of women and girls, with the impact of, to note that Taiwan ICDF is delivering these goals by thinking outside of the box. We believe we can do this better by working even more with our like-minded partners as part of our global partnership strategy. That brings us to this. Before I go on, as some of you may not know Taiwan ICDF, please allow me to give you a short introduction of my organization. As Taiwan's official aid agency, Taiwan ICDF is dedicated to boosting the socio-economic development, enhancing human resources, and promoting economic relations. We're doing this through human capital development and financial service and technical transfer. Based on Taiwan ICDF's experience and values, Taiwan ICDF's project focuses on 6 core areas of operation, including technical cooperation, humanitarian assistance, international education and training, lending and investment, and research development and evaluation. Let's look at the transformation that taking place in Republic of Palau. To address Palau's development needs in tourism, we created a cross-sector assistance plan that focuses on environment, ICT, SME development. In addition, to ensure the successful transformation, the Taiwan ICDF also built a multilateral partnership with the public sector, CSO, business, and individuals. For CSO, we are working with Sustainable Travel International on their expertise in carbon emission calculation, and also a very important partner, Palau Pledge, for their public communication reach. Their participation and contribution strengthen the bond between the public and private sector and increase the sustainable tourism awareness and financial resources. Using this strategy, Taiwan ICDF is building 2 main pathways for Palau's sustainable tourism: the preliminary study on carbon neutral tourism and the women and youth entrepreneurs and MSME relending project. To balance economic growth and environmental development, our study on carbon neutral tourism was launched on 2020. We used a series of change, starting with a carbon footprint assessment. The outcome is to establish the calculation and measurement of CO2 emissions to showcase the importance of carbon neutral and improve the awareness. We believe the scientific approach combined with the local insights is more effective in achieve the carbon neutral tourism together. From the study, there are 3 key outputs. First, producing the carbon footprint calculations through assessing carbon emissions, programming carbon calculations, and releasing the system online. Second, starting offset program and building capacity by designing an offset program, establishing selection criteria for offset programs, and building program and management capacity. Third, promoting study results by producing communication tools and materials and holding international and domestic awareness campaigns. To date, we have completed the first survey of greenhouse gas emission in Palau, including the accommodation, tour activities, ground transport, and dining sectors. The survey has each sector by size, type, and calculated standard emissions. Based on our calculation, it is estimated that 121,000 metric tons of CO2 was emitted by Palau's tourism industry in 2019, and an average of 1.37 metric tons of CO2 was produced by each visitors in the same year. Following the carbon footprint assessment, we also analyzed tourist activities and preference from different countries. As a result, the Palau government will be able to show the environmental impacts and raise the awareness of carbon neutral tourism among all stakeholders. As we continue to collect and compare the annual and baseline data of GHG emissions, the Palau government could create responsive strategy to change tourist behaviors and business operations, such as linking the GHG emissions with business certification to facilitate the transformation. In addition to a carbon footprint calculator, the study has also extended the initiative to local food producers through a training workshop on slow food. This is a global movement funded to prevent the disappearance of local food culture and traditions. With more awareness of local food, they will be able to serve dishes with more local elements and features, attracting more high-value tourists while producing less greenhouse gases. With a net zero as a ultimate goal and carbon offset as a stepping stone, we have set up several criteria for selecting potential offset projects, including a third-party verification of state credits at an affordable price and alignment with a local sustainability vision and global SDG. To further facilitate the transformation, financial support can be an incentive for business, especially for MSMEs. The Taiwan ICDF provides a concessional sovereign loan to National Development Bank of Palau, providing capital for the private sector's economic activities, including tourism. It is not only focused on MSMEs, but also assists underserved groups, including the women and youth entrepreneurs. With the support, these groups are encouraged and empowered to advance their business during COVID-19, as well as participate in climate actions. Moving forward, the two pathways I just mentioned are our first step. After the preliminary study, we expect to expand the scope of the project in partnership with the Palau government, CSO, and business. We aim to collect more diverse data and promote the carbon neutral tourism initiative to the public. In addition, the Taiwan ICDF will be developing more eco-friendly projects for tourism and business to help offset their emissions. And we will use our lessons learned to assist other 6 countries to balance their economic and environmental development. With that, I would like to use 5 I's to conclude my presentation, which are importance, inclusive, inform, incentive, and incubation. Tourism is the most important economic recovery, as well as to climate change forces in the post-COVID era. In addition to government, CSO, business, citizens, and tourists need to be educated, empowered, and encouraged to act for the climate change. With a reliable action footprint calculation and result, tourists and business will be better understand their GHG emissions and be able to contribute to reduce and offset. To leverage extra resources and enhancing incentive and empowering the stakeholders to be able to participate in carbon offset is our stepping stone for the carbon neutral tourism. To achieve the ambitions of Paris Agreement and Glasgow Breakthrough Initiative, the Taiwan ICDF will keep sharing the best practice and lesson learned to incubate more partners and practitioners to build our pathway for a sustainable future. I hope my presentation has given you a good overview of our work, what we've done for our friends from Palau. I think we can do a lot more by working together with all of you here today. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you so much, Director Chang. Amazing work, especially in this time of COVID where tourism is definitely affecting Palau Islands and other Pacific regions. I especially am moved by your willingness to partnership with local CSOs, international partners, especially highlighting the most vulnerable components of our society, women, and using indigenous knowledge to move this partnership forward. Thank you. In the same vein, we'd also like to welcome Ms. Shun Mei Yang, Secretary General, and Ms. Shun Mei Yang is the Secretary General for Mom Loves Taiwan Association, another very successful CSO based in Taiwan. And we want to open up the floor for her, and she's coming with us through a video. And Ms. Director Yang will talk about renewable energy as a means of improving living standards for marginalized groups and women as a practical case from Taiwan, if the video will play.
Hello, everyone. First of all, my sincere apology for not being able to attend the conference and catch up with everyone in person this year. I hope everything goes well and you all have a great time in Glasgow. Today, we are going to talk about the story of the fight of people from 3 northern districts in Taiwan. 3 northern districts, they were once lovely fishing and farming villages before the arrival of 2 nuclear power plants. These 3 districts are Shimen, Jinshan, and Wanli. Belong to New Taipei City, Jinshan District is surrounded by Wanli District and Shimen District, both of which have 1 nuclear power plant each. In the 1970s, villagers were asked to leave their homes and lifestyle they were used to in order for the nuclear power plants to be built. Tea farms and manufacturers could not survive without the younger population that left because of the changes the new nuclear power plants had brought. As for the beautiful Crescent Moonshine Beach, it had to be filled up to make space for a new port for the construction of the nuclear power plants, and the beach has been gone ever since. The people in these 3 districts have been fighting for justice for thousands of years with no result. And the only foreseeable future for them is to wait for the scheduled decommission of the nuclear power plants after 40 years. However, none of them know what is going to happen to the nuclear waste and where the final departure site will be. And no one seemed to be able to give them any answers. This time, they decided that instead of passively waiting for answers, they want to take back the control of their own future. They could not choose what source their electricity came from before, and they have no say when nuclear power plants destroy their hometown. This time, they have decided they are going to build environmentally friendly power sources on their homeland and bring dignity back to their homes. In the summer of 2020, the North Coast anti-nuclear group formed by people from these 3 districts, along with Green Citizens Action Alliance and us, Mom Loves Taiwan Association, collaborated on a community renewable energy project that aims to create a green power system that is run by everyone who wants to join, a green power plant that is the people's power plant. Through a platform called Sunny Founder, they invite anyone interested to crowdfund a solar plant. All the panels are installed on the roofs of buildings within the camping site in Queenstown. This is the northmost solar plant in Taiwan, and a project that perfectly combines with the concept of people's power plants and power plants for people. As a people's power plant, any citizen can invest in a solar panel for £395 and receive profits from the panels they invest in. We believe everybody should have the ability to affect how their country produces its energy. As a power plant for people, one can also choose to donate the profits from their solar panels to local organizations and charities devoted to educating the public on the matter and empowering local communities. Furthermore, the owners of the campsite buildings have promised to use the rental profits they earn through the project to provide after-school tutoring for local disadvantaged pupils, transforming the profits from the project into resources for strengthening the local community. This solar plant is called Jeddah-1 and is the solar plant of 80.92 kWp with 109 citizens as investors and 75 citizens and Momlas Taiwan as donors. Jeddah-1 is located in North Taiwan, where in winter, the northeast monsoon brings a lot of rain and cloudy days, and which therefore has less convertible sunlight compared to the south of Taiwan. With the help of the feed-in tariff plus rate bonus for northern Taiwan, Jeddah-1 has an internal rate of return of 5% and a 13-year payback period. North Taiwan has relied on energy generated from other areas for a long time, and this project brings hopes of transforming rooftops into solar plants in the north. Jeddah-1, funded by ordinary citizens like you and me through crowdfunding, provides energy autonomy to the area and will be the first step for northern Taiwan in reducing energy dependency on other areas. Profits from the project are transformed into resources to give back to the community in ways such as empowering the disadvantaged, providing environmental education to the public, and monitoring the commission process of nuclear power plants. In Taiwan, ordinary citizens rarely get a chance to be involved in investing in solar panels. One set of solar PV panels with the necessary inverter costs at least 20 to 30,000 pounds. And even if you can afford that, there are still many obstacles such as converting your roof into suitable surface for solar panels and the maintenance of the rooftops. This is why today I'm sharing the success story of Sunny Founder and their unique approach of making solar plants that is people's power plants and power plants for people. Sunny Founder is a platform founded by 3 young Taiwanese in 2016. Not only do they connect individual investors with people who can rent out their roof, they also provide all necessary services, making being a part of the green energy movement a lot easier for ordinary citizens. For investors, one click online and you can become an investor in solar plants in no time, receiving profits from the electricity you sell through your solar panels every 2 months for 20 years, without having to worry about any maintenance issue. For donors, one-time donation to be used on building solar plants, multiplying the effect of your donation over 20 years. For owners of roofs, Sunny Founder provides free consultation, and you can receive rental incomes with no effort. There are some numbers. Since the start of Sunny Founder, the proportion of female participants increases every year. In 2018, there were 61.2% male participants and 38.3% female participants. In 2019, there were 60.7% male participants and 38.9% female participants. In 2020, there were 56.6% male participants and 43.3% female participants. One thing is emphasized over and over again in Paris Agreement is the collective obligation of planning Earth, and that no one should be left behind. With the help of climate-conscious platforms such as Sunny Founder, everyone can contribute, no matter how little. And that the climate disadvantaged will have a chance for justice and autonomy. Working together, we will be able to fight climate change, the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced, and we have a chance to win. Thank you for your listening. May God bless all of you. Bye-bye.
Such a strong message from Ms. Xunmei Yang, Secretary General of Mom Loves Taiwan. It goes to further talk about how giving a voice to those most vulnerable can affect genuine change. And I think, if I may say that, Palau also really shares the same stance on nuclear energy as it is built into our Constitution. Moving on through innovation and how we use the renewable energy sector to build resilience, I'd like to introduce Ms. Brenda Hu, Director General of the Department of Planning, Financial Supervisory Commission. And she comes to us with a wealth of knowledge in the fintech sector. And she would be talking about ESG financing, responsible investment and lending, and nuclear power station for the community. Ms. Brenda Hu.
Thank you, moderator, and our distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming, and this is my pleasure to be here to share with you our policies regarding the green finance and also sustainable finance. I was told that I need to talk about more about inclusive finance. Sorry, I can't move. Okay. So for the time constraint, I will skip some of my slides. So when we talk about to finance our industries or to peoples, then we talk about that we need to attain some objectives. So for the carbon neutral, so we try to achieve some environmental objectives. So as you can see, we have these 6 objectives, but when we really try to obtain one of them, we cannot compromise the others. So we have to be careful. So for our projects, we try to manage that when our banks or financial institutions, when they extend loans or they invest, they should make sure that their investee companies or their clients are not just want to pursue one of the goal, but compromise the other. For example, like if they try to mitigate their carbon emission, but they pollute the water, or if they destroy the biodiversity, then it's not a good one. So we try to maintain minimum safeguards and to contribute to many of our environmental objectives. So both the environmental objectives and also the UN SDGs are also important. So what we need to do, we need to focus on some goals, for example, like good ESG performance or net zero by 2050, or the just transition and not left anyone behind. So there are some areas we need to focus. So for the regulator as a financial sector, we give we have some capitals that we can help. So financial sector's role are collecting people's money as savings or investments, and financial institutions have this power that they can decide where the money goes. So they can choose any kind of people or any kind of projects that are good for the society or they are not very good for the future. So they do have the responsibility to help the society. So when we talk about for sustainable development, we talk about that some people that we need to really focus on. So for the following several slides, I'm going to tell you about how our currently trying to help people, especially those are in disadvantaged. For example, like aged people, we try to give loans to them. As some of our aged people, they have houses, but when they retire, they don't really get money. So they can pledge their houses as collateral and get money from the banks. And also, we have created some platform for retirement so that they can buy the mutual funds and get periodically funds from the return of the fund investments. And also for the insurance, we have small amount insurance for aged people. I'm sorry, I forgot to move my slide. And also we have some insurance, for example, like small amount insurance for aged people of 55-year-old or above. And also we have protection-oriented insurance and pension funds. And also we have some protective measures for aged people. For example, like financial institutions cannot promote any structured products to this kind of people, especially when they are aged 65 or 7, because many of them are easily be cheated or there are some fraud happening. And for people that are physically challenged, we try to make sure that our financial institutions provide very accessible venues and equipment, etc. So we require them to have their websites for bear-free and ATMs bear-free. And also when they are soliciting or underwriting insurance products, they cannot discriminate them. And also if we found that they reject them, then we will punish them. And also for enhancement, we try to have a periodical seminars with NGOs that are focused on those physically challenged people. So to make sure that in the future where we can enhance. And for other disadvantaged people, we try to provide some products like microinsurance. Those are the insurance products for people that are encountering special situations. Low to medium income families, physically challenged or indigenous people and their families. And also we try to help those migrant workers. There are 700,000 migrant workers in Taiwan. So when they remit their salaries or payments back to their home country, they need to pay a lot to the banks. So right now we have issued an e-payment license so that they can really decrease the cost for the outward remittance. And also the time is very fast. Just one day they can remit their salaries. And also we try to finance for women entrepreneurs because we have some loans to female entrepreneurs. And if financial institutions do so, then we will award them. We also try to help our younger generations. So we have this kind of mechanism that they can buy shares periodically with a certain amount. And also they have lot share tradings, so that usually when we trade shares, we trade 1,000 shares. But right now we already have this kind of mechanism that they can trade their shares, just one share, etc. And also we try to develop the digital finance so that they can use pure internet banking and any digital account opening, etc. So that will be very easy for them to access financial services. We also try to help our SMEs. For example, we have loans to SME and 5+2 industries. Those are the key industries that we focus on, and green industry is one of them. And also we have fundraising mechanisms. We have multiple layered capital markets. So that's for the listed companies, that's a bigger one. And also we have markets for the emerging market companies. They are smaller one. And also we have a crowdfunding, etc. So it's very easy for those SMEs or micro companies to raise money in our capital market. We also try to help our startups. So we have a fintech space as an incubator to help younger generations to start a business. And also we have innovative fintech experiments to help them to try to get into the financial field. And in terms of the green finance, we have responsible banking. For example, we have some project finance that's targeting the offshore wind or the solar PV project, etc. So right now, when they think about they extend money to those projects, the financial institutions have to think about whether or not these projects are good for the society. So many of them have signed as signatories of Equator Principle. So the number is number 1 in Asia. So it's a pretty good performance. And also we have credits to 5+2 innovative key industries, green loans, and sustainable performance-linked loans. So those proceeds will use in green industry, for example, like renewables or energy efficiency industry, etc. And also for the sustainability-linked loans, ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues are the targets that we focused on. And I think I will skip some of them. Okay, for the fundraising, right now, in this April, we just launched this sustainable development bond markets. Those markets are very good for investors if they want to invest in the green industry or social issues. Those proceeds can be used into recycling or circular economy, or also affordable housing, etc. So there are many financial tools for them to invest. And also we have some financial products like ESG funds or ESG indices. So those funds will target or invest in other companies or projects that they are good for the society. And last, in the final, I'd like to talk about some our citizen power plant. I think the previous speaker already talked about that. The Sunny Founder, this is kind of a citizen power plant that we encourage to have. The goal is to involve community members to participate in the installation of green energy. And we also try to strengthen the link between local and renewables and try to promote multiple types of citizen power plants. So those kind of plans are encouraged, especially by our Ministry of Economic Affairs. They set up the overall planning and the promotion goal, and they have provided some policy guidance. And as a bank regulator, we try to support this kind of project. So our banks will voluntarily extend credits to those projects. Okay, in the end, I'd like to mention that for the civil society, it's not only government can do, but also private sectors and NGOs can do a lot. So we think it's a very public-private partnership should go on forever. And for as regulator as a financial sector, we try to reach the net zero goal by 2050, so that we will focus on the loan and investment portfolio to reach that target in the future. And also right now we found there are some gaps. That's a good opportunity for younger generation, because the government provides some data, but financial institutions need more data. So there is a data gap in between. So we try to have those younger generation to come to the market and to seize the opportunity. That will be our green finance and the sustainable finance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wu, for sharing such innovative solutions on how lending and the banking industry can contribute to resiliency. I especially found it apt that one of the rallying calls here during COP has been a call for companies to be more responsible. And I think it's speaking a lot to what this partnership has showed today. Speaking about a holistic approach to resiliency, we are very honored to be joined today by Dr. An Pang Kao. He is the Deputy Mayor of Taoyuan City Government in the Republic of China, Taiwan. His field of expertise comes from the political economy, applied microeconomics, environmental economics, Chinese economics, and he is the president of Association for China Economic Studies. And we'd like to hear from Dr. and Vice Mayor Kao about how Taoyuan is being a sustainable city. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Deputy Mayor of Taoyuan in Taiwan, it's my great honor to be here and to share our experience and common values with you. Today, we are gathering here in Glasgow to build a more sustainable, resilient, and net zero carbon future. Our presence shows a strong commitment to cope with climate change. First, let me briefly introduce my city, Taoyuan. The population of Taoyuan is more than 2,227,000 and has been growing every year for the past few years. Last year, for example, the population increased by almost 20,000. Taoyuan's area is 1,220 square kilometers. Therefore, the population density is relatively high. Increase in population is a big challenge to our environment. I think civil society could play an integral role in promoting carbon neutrality in Taoyuan City. For example, there are 504 communities in Taoyuan. Therefore, in order to improve the living environment, we are strengthening our interactions with the communities on low carbon sustainability. In order for the communities to achieve low carbon goals, the city government must communicate and promote less carbon within the communities. Taoyuan City has invested resources in environmental counseling and the regional renovation. We have combined the certificate mechanism to help community to obtain low carbon community certification and to build public awareness with a community participation rate of more than 80%. In addition to the above, I will now explain the other ways to achieve net zero in Taoyuan. These ways are all applicable to our communities. Our pathways to net zero emissions are based on 4 pillars: renewable energy, industrial energy transition, transforming transportation modes, and utilizing intelligent systems. We believe that the energy sector holds the key to responding to the world's climate change. The path to net zero emissions requires the massive deployment of all available green energy technologies. Taoyuan City has encouraged renewable technologies like solar and wind to reduce emissions in the electricity sector. Take solar power as an example. Until August this year, the total capacity of solar power installations will be 405 megawatts with a 65% growth rate in the last 3 years. Talking about the wind power, installation of land-based wind power generation facilities with the capacity of 100 megawatts are working now. We also built a bioenergy center and began operations this year. It can generate 220 million kilowatts of electricity and reduce carbon dioxide, 116,000 tons annually. With respect to public transportation, we plan to create the so-called 3 hubs and 6-route subway network, which connects transportation focal points within the city. Regarding ownership of private vehicles, we gradually phase out gasoline or diesel vehicles with low carbon vehicles. So far, more than 75,000 electric motorcycles have been registered in the city. This makes Taoyuan rank the first in Taiwan. In terms of sharing vehicles, we continue to invest in our public self-rental bicycle project. Up to now, about 380 renting stations have been set up, and the rides by bicycles have amounted to more than 49 million. Nowadays, climate change is a big challenge to all of us. We will do our best to cooperate with different parties and share experience and solutions to overcome the big challenge. Finally, let us unite together, work together, save our planet together. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Kao. It's really invigorating to hear what you're doing in Taoyuan City. And I think there are opportunities to consider sister city situations with places, other states in Palau as well, so we can benefit from your expertise in this sector. As we near the end of this event, I would just like to perhaps open the floor for questions, and I would also like to maybe pose some questions to the panelists as well. Yes, apologies. We do have one final panelist. I must introduce. Apologies for that. Finally, I would like to introduce our last panelist, Ms. Chen Yu-ye, Senior Manager of the Foundation of Taiwan Industry Services, or FTIS. And we're very fortunate that Ms. Ye will share a case study of how communities with carbon neutral and self-sufficient energy supplies are contributing to resiliency. Ms. Ye.
Yeah. Thank you, moderator. And my name is Chang Yu-ye from Foundation of Taiwan Industry Service. My greatest honor to be here to share your experience with you. And Foundation of Taiwan Industry Service has been devoted to tackling the climate issue for 33 years. In collaboration with the public and the private sector in Taiwan, we are dedicated to facilitating the steps towards sustainability with our specialty and experience. We support the domestic enterprises in forming sustainable solutions and their carbon offset project. We also assist the vulnerable in improving the energy efficiency of their facilities and bring out the carbon management plans to the rural. With effort put in both public and the private sectors, our island is indeed moving toward inclusion and sustainability. There are multiple approaches to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Today, I would like to share two examples of the collaboration between the public and the private sectors. In the mountainous area in Taiwan, where the public grid is more vulnerable to natural disasters and has no available energy storage system, the regions often become isolated and inaccessible from electric after the crisis. To help deal with the challenge, FTIS collaboration with the private sectors and to install solar power systems within the tribes and the villages. The solar energy system can fully cover the electricity usage in the area and can store the surplus energy. Next step, we plan to follow the UN Clean Development Management methodologies to obtain carbon credit for 300 tons of CO2. On the other hand, the private sector also needs assistance from the public sectors to promote carbon reduction. Taipei 101 is one of the 50 most influential tall buildings globally. In 2019, to increase the energy efficiency in lighting, FTIS has helped replace 2,800 T5 tubes with LED tubes in the underground parking lot, which helps saving 7.7% of electricity every year. According to the CDM methodology, this is equivalent to reducing 2,700 tons of CO2. There are many means to reduce GHG emissions, one of which is to voluntarily cut the emission and obtain the emission credit. Through collaboration between public and the private sectors, FTIS promotes a small-scale carbon offset project, setting up a role model and companies. This is the end of my speech, and thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the comments. I do apologize for earlier. Instead of the questions, we should just move on to conclude. And I would just like to, once again, thank everyone for joining us, especially the host, the government of Palau, the Foundation of Taiwan Industry Services, Mom Loves Taiwan, thank you for joining us, and finally, International Cooperation and Development Fund. Thank you so much for the inspirational words and the solutions shared today, and we hope that you have a further great experience here in Glasgow. Thank you very much.